Hello everyone, welcome to Redmen TV. Obviously normally on a Monday we'll be doing the Redmen Originals podcast. We'll be talking about all things Liverpool, but as you all are very well aware, the end of last weekend, the weekend saw the passing of Diogo Jota and his brother Andre Silva as well. So we thought we'd best to dedicate this really to the memory of a fantastic Liverpool player and a fantastic person as well. Obviously we've seen some incredible tributes over the weekend. We'll be talking through them. We want to talk about our sort of personal feelings on it as well, because one of the things I've spoken about previously on YouTube over the weekend is I think everyone kind of needs people to talk to about these things. So we'll talk through it. Yeah, the reaction. We'll give our own sort of favourite memories of Diogo throughout the time, but largely it's going to be freestyle that is very raw to everyone in this room, and I'm sure to everyone watching or listening at home as well. So we're going to try our best to do justice to fantastic person and footballer as well throughout the time. If anyone has favourite memories, please feel free to use the YouTube chat to get involved with us, and it might spark some interesting conversation off the back of that as well. I am joined, of course, by Chris Pajak, Steve, Chloe Bloxham and Dan Clubber in the room with me for this one. I haven't seen you guys since. We've had a few interactions, so I actually don't know too much about where it was. I guess I'll kick it off from my first sort of knowledge of it. That I was sat on a train down to London when it was Dan who first found the tweet from Mark, and I mean, Dan, I'll start with you. Really, is that obviously you're our social media manager, so you tend to be at the forefront of all this. I know from my perspective, when I saw the message come in, you just presume it's transfer something, because that's like 24 hours earlier there was a tweet that got put in our group, and it was probably Kwanzaa or Mamadashvili flying in or whatever. So you just presume it's that, and I think there was just a collective sense of disbelief when first seeing the market tweet.
Yeah, disbelief is very much the word, Paul. And how much I wish it was just that transfer stuff, obviously. I was dumbfounded, completely and utterly lost for words. I was actually sat at the back of a spin class with my phone sort of there, and obviously, as you mentioned, with my job, I have certain notifications on Twitter and what have you, and normally they just come and go as the time passes, and I ignore most of them. But this one, unfortunately, again, caught my eye, because it was almost like the wording was something along the lines of it's hard to know what to say in circumstances like this. So I was like, oh, I didn't even mention Liverpool, no mention of Jota, nothing. So I went, oh my God, what's this? Clicked on it, and then became apparent it was Diogo Jota, it was the marker stuff, and just walked straight out of that class, walked straight into change rooms, and I just couldn't almost gather my thoughts, couldn't comprehend what I'd just seen, sent it to our group, as you mentioned as well, and I can't tell you how much I was hoping and praying during the time it was taking me to get showered and get myself together that I was going to come back and see that it had been disproven, or it wasn't the case, or someone had made a mistake, whatever. I was honestly so desperate for that to be the case, but obviously, unfortunately not.
Yeah, it kind of led to that thing where, again, so I saw people's reactions coming in, dripping in via our group. Were you guys in the office that?
I was the only one in the office at the time. I was sat upstairs eating my brekkie, just having a bowl of cereal and stuff, and obviously saw the same text that you saw, and then obviously I'm there, sort of push the breakfast to one side, and you're sort of like trying to corroborate, if that makes sense, or actually what you're looking for is disprove. And you're sort of there, and then you start to see more things, and then it's all leading back to that Marcia story in the first instance. And I can't remember who put it in. It might have been Joe, one of our producers, who then found something from what would essentially be the police or the highway patrol or whatever it was over in that area of Spain. And it said like a 28-year-old and a 26-year-old. And at that point I was thinking, oh God, this is probably real now. And then, we start getting the likes of Sky News and ITV and BBC start reaching out to all of us individually, don't they? And at that point you're thinking, oh, this has now hit the UK press. The Daily Mail, rag, decided to start reporting on it probably first, that I saw in England and stuff. And at that point you're just like, what on earth is going on? And I remember Harrison coming in, and he was the first person who walked into the office, and he looks at me and he goes, are you all right? And I went, no, Jota's dead. And he just looked at me, and he'd not seen the news, and he went, what? I was like, Jota's dead, our Jota. And he was like, he couldn't, and he just stopped in his tracks as he was walking towards me. and instantly just takes his phone out and like ignores me and the rest of what's going on, and then Sai walks in, and it's almost the exact same interaction between us. He's like, "Are you all right?" And we're like, "No, Jota's dead." And like it was heartbreaking. It was just horrible, and you just, first off, you start thinking about his family, don't you, and his kids, and the fact that they've lost a father and an uncle and his wife, and then you start thinking, I've just seen him get married. Mm-hmm. Like that was like one of the first thoughts, wasn't it? He's just got married, and I don't think I'd actually seen that on Twitter at the time. It was like something at the back of my mind, so I remembered Instagram and stuff, and then it just went on from there. It was a horrible day.
I think that was a similar thing, Claire. I think everyone kind of had that, is that what Chris was saying is you get the news, and I think because of the way the world's gone, particularly in recent years, you hear, there's hoaxes exist, and, and ultimately, even a bit of an old school way, people make mistakes, people report things incorrectly, and you're hoping really that's really what it is. And that kind of, Chris, is that for that short spell, as much as it was being reported more widely, it was still only based on the information that was coming from those initial tweets. So it was possible that it could have been wrong. But as we tried to sort of say there, within the hour, you realise that it's real, and then it's about 20 past 10, I think, when Liverpool finally sort of confirm it. And from that moment, it's, I don't know, a sense of unreality, even though it's been confirmed.
Yeah, even now I don't think it's fully sunk in yet, and actually going to Anfield, that's when it really hit me of, oh wow, like this has actually happened. I was getting ready, I was about to leave my house when you put it in the group chat, and I just stopped. I wasn't on time, I can tell you that much, because I kind of sat down with my phone and was like, no, surely not. Like, I think I questioned the report. I was like, is this report, it feels like there's something in my brain where someone's a report like this is in the past came out and it's not quite being true. It's been something along the lines and they've got bits and pieces correct, but the full sentiment wasn't actually true. And you kind of sat there in disbelief and hoping that it's not. And
well, there was a thing on Twitter where beneath the marker tweet, someone had asked the Grok AI to fact check it, and the response was, "No, this is probably not true because it hasn't been reported anywhere else." But that was unfortunately just the nature of how early it was.
Yeah, and I remember coming in here, and it was then that I sat down, and everyone is just stunned. Like, it's silence in the office. And everyone just goes and sits in their own seats. Like, no one speaks to anyone. You just sat and you're just looking at Sky Sports. And I remember first coming in, and it was, there's reports. And I remember the split second where Sky Sports changed from saying reports to it's being confirmed. And that's when you sink, and that's when you realise, like, there's any hope that you had is gone, that it wasn't the case.
The language is weird and stuff like that, because I remember that happening when a family friend committed suicide. But I remember being told about it, saying it looks like he's tried to, and I said, oh well,
did he fail?
Yeah, and oh no, sorry. What I meant to say was, no, actually, it's happened. And it's like, because you're hoping for some sort of reprieve, aren't you, Steve?
Yeah, mate, like I say, it's devastating. I was thinking back to, my mind was like, Mikel Antonio had a car crash and it was reported that he'd passed away, and then it turned out he hadn't. He was injured, and I was thinking maybe like that could be the best case scenario now, which is a mad thing to say, because the young people in that, but like, you're just hoping beyond hope. Because when I first saw the message, I was driving actually, and it popped up on my screen, Dan message, so I just ignored it because obviously I'm driving, but I pull over because I see that the chat's going quite busy and stuff, and I just presumed at first it was he's being sold.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, oh no man, I love Diogo Jota. I hope that isn't true. Like, maybe he's been injured a bit, and maybe the manager, because this manager's changing things, and that was like, and then I pressed that translate button because it was all in Spanish, and then I pressed the translate button, and then my heart just sank, and I just like the ultimate devastation, and you're just hoping that someone's got something wrong. I think by the time I got to the office and there's a few people in it was starting to go, unfortunately. It was starting to be at the point where it was confirmed. Chris was going on Sky News and Sky Sports News, asked me would I say a few words, and I was like, oh, what do you say? But we kind of, and then obviously it's more a case of like, you just have to try and wrap your head around it, and then it is just pure sadness is the first thing that it really hits you, and like I say, empathy to his family and things like that. That's the first things that you start thinking about, and it's just, mate, it is like, it's one of those things that you just hope it's not real. That you just hope that something's gone wrong, or it's a bad dream, or it just isn't. You know, this just doesn't happen. This just doesn't happen. It can't happen, and unfortunately, like you say, it quickly became the fact that Liverpool. I think I remember going on the Liverpool website and they took everything down, because I was hoping that they were. If I go on that website, they might be. This isn't true. He whatever. But I went on the website and it was blank.
Like in preparation.
They took exactly. They took it. They were obviously preparing the statement or whatever, and I was like. That's when it really hit me, unfortunately. So yeah, it was surreal in the worst possible way.
Paul, I just wanted to ask you, you were on a train, like trains in England don't have great Wi-Fi, like how did you sort of, what happened to you?
So the thing for me, so I was on we had some business meeting down in London, which I took, which is, again, it's kind of funny how I remarked to you the other day, how like our roles kind of ended up half reversed for the day. You normally do the business side, and I'd normally be the front facing chat side of things. And I felt totally and utterly like cut off from it. It was so, and I think I said it on a video that I put out well of like, it gave me a real empathy for how most people experience Liverpool, because I'm so privileged to have people around me. You know, Liverpool's just part of your daily routine, least of all because it's our job as well, of course. But I was just there and doing that thing that everyone was doing of like translating tweets and searching and trying to find you become a social media detective at that point, trying to find something that says this is nonsense. And but being Marca, and Marca are the Real Madrid paper, right? Yeah, so we've had experiences where in the past where so yeah, I have an inherent distrust of them as an outlet for footballing reasons. And I was I'm on this train. I'm actually, it's stopped at the station at Crewe. I get on, that's when I first get it, and then it sets off, and then I'm getting the phone calls from the news agencies as well, and obviously interacting a bit with you guys on WhatsApp, and all the while they're trying to find some way, hoping there's going to be some glimmer of light that says, oh no, don't worry, it was just an error or something down the line.
But for us, Paul, like, the whole world sort of stopped. What was it like for you being on a train?
Well, it was mad, because you're just emotional, and you can feel the tears welling up, and it was that ridiculous long train down to London where it stops at like 18 stops or whatever down the way, so it's getting busier and more full, to the point where probably the last sort of 45 minutes I'm sat next to a random person as well, so actually then I'm in a corner and I've just got this in front of me. And it was so surreal to be there going, I don't know who knows about it. You want to just go, God, have you seen this? But actually, what I don't want is someone to go, who? Or whatever, because I couldn't handle that. So yeah, I felt a real sense of disconnect from it all, really. And again, for me, I saw a great post from Abby Rudkin over the weekend, who did a Jota painting, and I thought she summed it up beautifully, of like, everyone's got their outlets, so everyone's got their way of dealing with life and dealing with things, and I'm the kind of person that, like, I talk about things, and I make YouTube videos talking about things, and I interact with other people and I get their emotions and speak to them, and I had no access to any of that. I felt totally and utterly cut off. And even then, when I arrived in London and went to my meeting, most of the people there was one Liverpool fan, but it was all very like, oh, condolences. I don't want condolences. I just need someone to, I want someone else who understands how much this sort of hurts, because I don't want to have to explain why it hurts. You know what I mean? Like that was what I was desperately trying to avoid. But no, it was totally and utterly surreal. It made it less real to me, because I had no one to share the grief of it with. And then it's weird to explain this shit, because never met him. I've seen him play football loads of times. He's given me loads of great moments, but I'd never had any one-to-one interaction with him as
I remember talking to Kat, my wife, on Thursday night, and we had like a deep heart-to-heart on it, and I said the words, I was like, I didn't think I'd ever feel like this. I've never really understood grief for celebrities or anything like that. Obviously, probably the biggest one in our lifetime was Diana, dying, and I was so not at all feeling like most of the country.
Well, we were probably 13 or 14.
Yeah, but like, I see 7, 6, 5, 4-year-olds who are actually grieving for Jota,
Yeah.
and that's the thing where I think back when I was 13, 14, and I've never understood it before, and it's never, like, a celebrity dying has never really ever gotten to me unless they've written a song or something that really resonates with me. So yeah, I found it really difficult to even, I almost felt embarrassed saying I was grieving over the weekend, because I don't know whether it's me or not, but I felt like I shouldn't, but I was. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I guess everyone kind of probably has a similar thing. You don't want to have to explain why you're sad about it, because that would actually make me angry. I don't want to feel angry. I want to be able to process it all. I want to just talk about the sort of next of it all, really, because I know. I went down to the ground on Saturday. I took my son to basketball, and then we went on the drive back. We parked up in Stanley car park and walked, and had a walk along the tribute. And that was when I probably had a handful of times, just at various stages of it. But I found that really helpful, because I'd had that bottled up and I'd not had a place to put it. And also it was a thing of like, Jack's he's not really that engaged with the football side. He understands what's sad. He got a bit upset seeing the news article, the news story on it, on the night of it or whatever. But so you went to Anfield, really, it was on the day itself, wasn't it?
Yeah. I think I went down there for about 1:30, and I was really surprised by the crowd already, because you think people are in school, people are in work, like it's working hours. And yeah, I remember walking up to where the memorial section was, and the amount of people in crowds just hugging each other and just stood reflecting and paying their respects. And like I said, at first I didn't get to pay my respects and go over. I think I did something for BBC in which, I just tried to express how much he meant to us as a fan base and why this outpouring of love was happening. But it was when, after that, I instantly went and stood in front, and you read the messages and you can't help but your eyes get drawn to certain things. And you want to, in a way, you want to read everything because you connect with it all. And also because he was every single one of these things that people have wrote about him. So that was when I did break down, and you see, I saw a couple of people from LFC there, and then I saw the likes of Courtney in there, and Courtney gave me sunglasses because I did break down just reading the messages that people had put out there. And Courtney had a flag, and we decided to write some messages on it, and you're looking at everyone around you, and everyone's they're kind of trying to speak to you to basically just talk about what he gave you as a football fan, but also what he was like as a person and how down to earth he was. And me and Courtney just decided that this flag could be for absolutely anyone who wanted to sign it, who wanted to write a message. And there was absolutely loads of people there was a queue forming to come and sign this flag, and it's up there now at Anfield, and it's absolutely covered with beautiful messages. And what really hit me was the fact that people were coming up and saying, can I write it in my own language if they weren't English? And we were like, absolutely, go for it. There was a United fan who was from Colombia, and luckily Sophie, who used to work at LFC TV, was there, and she kind of spoke to him in Spanish, and he wrote something in Spanish, and it basically was, all of our thoughts are with you. And it was just a sense of community. It was seeing that, we speak about it. Football is, the most important of the least important things. And when something bigger like this happens, the way we unite. And yeah, it really helped me being there, because I arrived and it was really somber. But then by the end, people were constantly coming up and just hugging you and just saying, thank you for letting me write something that I really needed to write, or just speak to you about the time. And I left feeling a little bit lighter, is the only way I can describe it, because there's your outlet. So many people who understood exactly how you're feeling and what you're going through. But I did go back the next day because I kind of wanted to also go on my own. And I laid some flowers down with my mum, and then I went and signed the book. And yeah, it was I can't describe what it's like, because you break down as soon as you get there.
Yeah.
And that's when it hits you. It's seeing all the flowers and everything dedicated and the tributes to him that really hits it home.
For me, Dan, the thing that I thought was the most striking is it's a stupid thing. It was the amount of people who left like control pads, like Xbox pads and PlayStation pads, because they know that. It's one of those things. There's people who understand the nature of it and understand grief and understand that's how you conduct yourself. So there'll be lots of bits and pieces of that. But you know what it is, because it was that, and it was like the kids' football shirts, and that for me is where a young person has gone, I don't know how to process this, but I'm going to give something of myself to it. And like the idea of like, there's a kid who hasn't who's given up his control. You know what I mean? Because that's what he feels like. That I want to give something of myself up to that. I just thought that a couple of times I saw that, and that honestly, like that's something they won't have now. You know what I mean? They've kind of made that offering. Which I thought was really, I thought stuff like that was really beautiful.
100%. Yeah, and it is overwhelming. I agree entirely with both of your points there. When you get there and you see just that outpouring, literally see it. You can see it laid out in front of you, just how much this has hurt us all and how much we've been impacted and how difficult it is to comprehend. But to your point, like the fact that people just are compelled to go down there and leave something of theirs, just to show that it meant something and he meant something to us, and as did his brother. It's been remarkable in the worst possible circumstances, it's fair to say. And being down there myself in the afternoon, I spent a good couple of hours down there, signed the book like Chloe did, saw Chloe, and it's just I struggle to understand how it happened, first and foremost, and even to the point on the day when we're having these conversations with these people, whether it be whatever news out there was, I honestly a couple of times had to stop myself speaking and go, how am I speaking about this? Yeah. Why do I have to speak? You know what I mean? Like why is this a thing that we're having to? It's just utterly heartbreaking. And
how do you do it justice?
Exactly.
And I actually think every one of you conducted yourselves amazing, exemplary. But I found it, like I said, I did a video just giving my thoughts on it. And I got to the end and I put it out and then I went, I didn't even talk about the song. Yeah. You know what I mean? And
I did exactly the same.
100%, yeah.
And the funny thing, because I had to re-record. I'd done quite a raw version, on the night itself. And then I woke up the next morning. I was like, no, it was fine, but I feel like I can be more concise. I can get across things better. But yeah, totally overlooked the song, and that was the thing of it all. Of you can't. It's not possible to sum up a 28-year-old fella, and you shouldn't have to. And then on the trying to think of things there and then in the moment as well. Steve, it was, no, you're not prepared for this. Nobody's prepared for things like this.
No, mate, and like I say, there's a fine balance as well. So, like for example, I was on Sky Sports News, and it was like, tell us what Diogo Jota meant to you. I was like, 45 minutes ago, I was driving to work just ready to talk about transfers and now it's this, and I was like, okay, I feel like I want to get it across as much as I could. Like, footy doesn't matter at this moment in time. This is about the fella and his family and all that kind of stuff. But then asked about it, I still think it's good to talk about the moments that he brought us, and because he did bring joy to so many people. So you start talking about, I know we're going to do it later as well. But I went to the stadium, sorry to digress a little bit, and I didn't go for the similar reasons as you, I'll be honest. My reason I went down there, because I'm a bit like, because I feel empathy more than like sadness and grief. Mine's more empathy to his family, and I thought, if I go down with flowers, it's just like, at some point, his wife and his mum and dad and the kids will see that this happened. Yeah. And maybe that'll bring them some level of comfort or something, whether it's tomorrow or in 4 years' time when as kids grow up, they'll see what their dad meant to us all. And that's when it really hit me. So that's when I started, must admit, I was like, oh, this is just horrendous. Like, you see pictures of his family, and I was thinking, these poor kids, and that's the sense I kept going back to all the time, was more, there's two parents there who've lost both their sons, and there's 3 kids and a wife who have lost their dad and husband, and that's the bit where I kept going back to. I hope at some point, and I understand now it will not be the time for them, they're grieving their family member. I do hope at some point they see this. They'll see this at some point and go, that's what my dad meant to these people, or that's what my husband meant to these people, or my son. He brought these people so much joy that they felt compelled almost. It was never a decision that I was going to go to the ground. It was just when I was going. Like, it was never, shall I go? I'm going. I'm going to a flower shop on the way. I've got messages that I want to write. There's a couple of phrases that I want to write down, and I'm going. And that was my thing of going down there, and I keep going back to that. So there's different ways of how people grieve and whatever. Mine is just pure. I feel just so bad and so sorry for that family and what they're going through.
And the thing is, that's how it works, really. That's how grief sort of works in those instances. And, because I think people feel guilty sometimes about, like, because you relate it to yourself. Yeah. That's really what you do. Unless someone was, really, really close to you, that's how most of us experience grief. Is almost like you put yourself in the shoes of people who are more directly affected. And that's why you do feel like a bit of a heel sometimes when you go, well, why am I so upset about this? Well, no, you're allowed to feel how you feel about it, really. And that's what the beauty of the tribute, isn't it, Chris, is that so many people choosing it in their own ways. I thought the fact that, like, there was someone there who people who drew stuff, you know what I mean? Like, they just decided spontaneously to create a piece of artwork. Or I saw casts of stuff, and there were balloons. There were people writing messages. It's the fans of other football clubs as well who've gone out of their way to go and to do that kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, when I went down on Thursday evening. I went home. I wasn't really planning to go down, to be honest, and then I just felt compelled to. So I went down there and saw someone in an Everton shirt, saw someone in a Man United shirt, saw someone in an Arsenal shirt. And you do realise, it's like what Steve said before, that, like, the football world community does pull together in times like these, and that gives you hope, doesn't it? I think, that the banter can all be put aside and all that, and everyone feels the same way, because they can put themselves in your shoes as a fan of another club, because if they would think about, like, what if that happened to one of ours? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So I found that really interesting.
It's also made me, and I'm sort of a person, like, just how you speak about these fellas.
Yeah.
They're human beings. Like, sell him, he's this, or like, he's and I've said similar things, and I think, yeah, maybe we have to just be careful how we speak about these guys. I mean, like, I hate X, Y, and Z, and we've done videos on how much, and I was thinking, maybe this is just a reminder, like, these are human beings. This is a fella who got in his car to drive home because he'd reportedly had an operation to be fit to play footy for us. Yeah. And that's what he's done, and he's ended up in a car and he's had an accident, and it made me think about these are just men who have got wives and kids and their dads, and they do the school run and they took their kids in at night. It's really
the family side of thing.
We never consider that. We just consider them as they're not even robots, just they're fellas who kick a ball around, and we decided they're good or not, and we pay our money for it, and we can say what we want. And it's the humanising nature of it, because I saw that video, and I'll tell you what it was. I don't know who posted it, I apologise. It was Jota at the end of the season playing football with his kids, and I was thinking, they're the type of things you see those videos when you see like a memorial video, and by the time that person passed away, those kids are adults, and that is just a memory, and that is like 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago or something, and that is where I was like, this is horrendous.
I totally agree with you on the human side of things, and that's why I think seeing the Everton scars and the Man United shirts, and obviously Wolves fans have got their own connection to Jota, and there's tons of other example of it, and I thought that was one of my first thoughts of, like, it's mad how we have this footy discourse where, Jota, when some people were speaking negatively about Jota toward the back end of the season, because that's how people talk about football, and it made me immensely sad to think about that. Like, about how we're now celebrating all these great moments, and maybe we should think about that a bit more. But that your point about the kids, it's my favourite part of the season, is actually seeing the players when the kids come out on the pitch at the end of the season, because I love the human, and I think that's one of the reasons why people connect differently to. And look, people do grieve celebrities when they pass, and people grieve movie stars, and there's been like 2 or 3 other quite famous people passed away over the weekend as well, in a variety of things. The guy who played Doctor Doom in the Fantastic Four movies, and people will grieve. But actually, I think the football, you can be more connected to it in some way.
Well, you see them live in person. You see a movie star on a screen or on a TV every other week. You see these guys in front of your face.
But there are people who consume football only that way, and I think that, and that's why the negative side of things will come, and people will have a go because social media is an absolute cesspit. But provided it exists, that unity exists in the real world, I think we can all take a bit of solace in that, and that goes back to the beauty of the
I think the thing and the difference maybe with football in that instance is you're seeing them. You see an actor, you're not seeing the real person, are you? You know, you can see Diogo's love for the game every time he touched the pitch, every time he scored a goal, every time he hugged somebody on the pitch.
That's not fake.
You can see that. That's not fake, exactly. But the family side of things, you know, 4 of us here are fathers, aren't we? And that's the thing that, like, you have empathy naturally for anybody who's a father or a son or a brother or anything, because we've all got those relationships. Most of us have got those relationships in our lives and stuff. And, like, you know, to think of 2 kids who can't be tucked in again by the dad.
It's 3.
3, and isn't going to, like, have someone to read them a story. The dad's never going to read them a story again. And it's all those little things, and you're thinking, the world's just been blown apart.
That's what I mean. There's so many angles from it. You know, I empathise it from his wife's perspective. You know, the people who are upset from the people who lost brothers, and people who've lost people in car accidents. You know, those kind of things. There's people you think about is the parents have lost both their kids in one hit on it. So yeah, I mean, and again, that's the unifying thing about grief, Chloe, is that it doesn't really matter how you choose to empathise with it, how you choose to engage with it. It is in its own way. Yeah, no. Every one of us would take back every one of them tributes and offer them in a million other ways that would find a way to reverse this, but it's not possible to do so. So what we have to do is look at the beauty of the situation and say, there's someone who had such an impact on the world that tens of thousands of people are spontaneously in the hours that followed, the days that followed, gone there to offer some sort of mark of respect.
Yeah, and, you know, for all of us, we all see that on smaller scales in our own family because it's the impact that you have on your family. But, you know, he never asked to be in the limelight. He just ended up there by being so good at football. And from the tributes and the way everyone else speaks about him, you can tell that just never got to him. He was still the same person who had the same core values, went about life. It was just the fact that he'd play footy and be on TV week in, week out.
His bio still a gamer, didn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
mate, he was a fun guy, like, by all accounts, like, you know.
Quite normal with it as well.
Yeah, like, but, like, you know, he liked snooker and darts and horse racing. Well, he you know, he'd play FIFA, and Liverpool would have a game tomorrow, and it'd be 1 a.m, and he's battering some kids 7-1, and he's like, you know what, I'm a footy player, but this is my life, like, this makes me happy, and there's something so pure about that. That's fantastic.
That was the quote I read, and I don't know, not verified as such, but it was from his mother, who said basically when he was growing up, that was what he was like. He just wanted to play football, and he wanted to play on his games console, and he never wants to go out. He never wanted to live a party lifestyle. It was enough to be able to play football, and then come and play FIFA at the end of his day. You know, he was living his dream, which is just
you can imagine him, like, listen, having 3 kids is hard. Like, it's hard, and you're a professional footy player, and I can just imagine him. It's like 10 o'clock on Friday, the last kid's gone to bed, he's going, you know what, I'm just going to play FIFA. I'm going to, like, that's my thing that I'm going to do. And if some kid's getting it, you know, I'm going to beat this 10-0 and I'm going to laugh while I'm doing it. And that kind of, like, sums him up, really. You know, Chloe spent time with him more than all of us, and he just come across like a guy who just, like, this is how I am. I'm unapologetic. I am unapologetically me, and there's something so brilliant about that. Like, yeah, this is what
you say that, that's the kind of, you could be a bellend with that. You know, people who are unapologetically them are often people who you go, God, just tone it down a bit. He's just, I thought, just talking about some of the tributes, Andy Robertson's one I thought was the one that summed it up.
He's like
most.
He's like a Scottish.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Like, and he just talked about it on such a human level. Like, any one of us would talk about one of our friends, and because there are so many platitudes around these things, and you can't help it because you want to express it in some way. So there are just the generic things that you can say about someone once they've passed. But Robertson's one, it put me in the room with them, which I thought was really lovely. That you're right. He was not a flashy guy. He was not an extrovert. He just was a guy you've got in your friendship group. And he's not the one that you all necessarily gravitate to, but everyone's got friends like that.
Yeah, and definitely reading Robbo's, I think Kelleher's and also Conor Bradley's, they were the 3 that hit me the most, because like you said, we see him as the footballer, and then you don't really get to see them on a personal level. These lads, they were his best mates, and he was one of their best mates. They spent week in, week out with him. You know, they were close enough that they spent, you know, however many days ago now, the best day of his life with him. And you just kind of get the family aspect of it, that these are a bunch of lads who see him every single day, who they work with him, but they're also really good mates outside of it. They go to each other for absolutely everything, because they can't speak like we can. You know, things get picked up and it gets put out in the media. They can't. They have to have a really close circle, and your bonds become even tighter because of that. And seeing that, and seeing what we all thought he was like as a human, but actually hearing it from the words of some of his best mates, it says everything. And yeah, it was really hard to hear that, but also at the same time, you can't help but smile reading it, because like you said, you put in the room with them, just a lad who liked the sport like all of us. And you mentioned the controllers earlier. How many of us can't be professional footballers? So what do? We go and play on a game and use those professional footballers and believe we're we are them. He did that. He came home and he played on a console, and I saw some of the tweets and people were quoting it from a while back, where he's in Ultimate Team, he's in Foot Champs, and he's beaten someone that bad. He keeps pausing the games to try and make them rage quit. And it's like, you do that in your, like, that's what you do on this game.
A lot of people also, Chloe, a lot of people started reposting the video that you did with Jota.
Yeah.
Obviously the FIFA celebrations, and I love in that one, like, he puts himself number one. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's like,
he knows it's coming.
And he has a dig at Trent Alexander-Arnold, because he's a lad in his mid-20s, and that's how lads in the mid-20s act.
Well, they had a mad like FIFA rivalry going on. They were playing in a final, like, was it like a celebrity tournament?
It was the COVID one when he was at Wolves.
Before he joined us and stuff like that. So they had that, like, that level of,
and that's what lads
competition.
are like, you know. And it's like, it's worth mentioning. I'll say it now, like, I hope, like, and I'm sure Liverpool will. These are young men who've lost their, you know, that difficult. There's some lads there who were 20, 21 years old who were dealing with losing a friend. So that's something that we're all gonna have to consider. You know, keep an eye on those players.
You know, it's one of them. Players leave football clubs.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, is that players are able to adapt to these things all the time. But not this. But it's whenever that creeps into your mindset of. There's a reason. The reason why is X. You're right. That's going to be something to deal with. Just in terms of the stuff that we saw over the weekend, anyone else? Anything stand out to people? I've mentioned the Robertson one already.
Ebus as well, I thought.
Yeah, that's good. I was just going to say once again a massive shout out to Everton, because every single time they stand shoulder to shoulder with us as a city, and you know, don't like them as a football club. But my God, there's no one else I'd rather have in this city aside from them standing by us and supporting us.
Seamus Coleman for me, yeah, exactly what Dan was going to say there. I mean, the fact that he felt the need to go down at 11:15 at night when there was no cameras and stuff to just say his own personal tribute to Diogo. You know, we talk about the measure of Diogo Jota and the man that he is, but Seamus Coleman on the other side of Stanley Park is up there for one of the best fellas in football, because that is just who he is and how he conducts himself.
I enjoyed strong words, but I took some from, like, you know, the footy players who scored the goal, and like in all sports, by the way, I think there's Aussie rules players doing the celebration, and Mbappe does the 20, and then Bele does the PlayStation. Raul Jimenez, obviously connection with Jota and things like that as well, where they've just you can't do anything. There's nothing you can do that makes this better, but in your own little way, if you can just do something that pays tribute to the person like that's the best you can do. So all these, like, all these celebrations that I've seen going around, the people doing the PlayStation remote or the eyes thing, I took something from that as well. Like, it's a story that has touched every part of the world. You know what I mean? And
well, you never get to see the legacy that you leave behind, you know, and that's the nature of life. But there is something, again, I've used that word a couple of times, but like beautiful about, because this is my thing about, because we were talking about before we went on air about, is his brother getting enough coverage? And the honest answer is no, you know, not. But it's hard for us to talk about him, because I didn't even know he had a brother prior to the weekend. It's not something I never really thought about or knew about. I thought this about his wife. I didn't know his wife's name until the weekend, you know, and I had to go and find it out, because it wasn't something that was on my radar. He's a footballer, plays for Liverpool, and I enjoyed him and consumed Diogo Jota in that sort of sphere. But seeing just how far and wide that is, there was Oasis bringing his photo up at the Cardiff gig when they were playing Live Forever. Raul Jimenez wearing a Jota shirt out in the Gold Cup final, and there's loads in that. There's something for me that's incredibly moving around that of like, that's how big, you would never. I don't think anyone ever think about that. I don't think Jota would think about that, would have thought about that for a moment about himself. That, how many people, there's tributes outside the Wolves ground, obviously, how many football clubs he played for, and there's all those things, with the people who were turning up to his funeral and different football shirts of the teams that he played for in the past. There's something genuinely stunning about how wide-ranging the tribute to be.
Honest brother, Paul, again, this is different a little bit, and this is where you go back to I've got a little brother who's 18 months younger than me. You know what I mean? And we're so close, and I was thinking his brother's it appears like his brother's like, say, don't travel by yourself, I'll come with you. He could easily have jumped on the plane, or, you know what I mean? He said, I'll come for that drive with you, or I'll take you in the middle of the night to your ferry or whatever.
It's the end of your holiday, isn't it? You go on a road trip together.
And like, I go back to the interview that went round the other day, and I thought it was beautiful. I think it was with Joel, and he says, like, to Jota, who's your favourite player to watch?
Oh, yeah.
And he says, my little brother. And I was like, oh my God. And I cried again. And I was like, I completely, like, that one resonates with me on a whole number of levels. But like, I don't get, I think he goes like, Ronaldo was my hero in terms of he was the Portuguese superstar who I want to be. But if I can go and watch one fella play footy, it's me little brother who plays second division. And then he starts telling Joel about me, like, his name's Andre, and he plays in this position, and he plays, and I was like, oh my God, like that's front and centre, like, of his mind from day one. I found that, like, those two lads, how close they must have been together, and that's what, and then you go back to thinking of the parents who've lost both of them, and it's just like, you go from sad to, I'm not sure what the right word is here, but like, it's nice to see the support, but then you go back to the only reason I'm seeing this video is because he's died, and then it's a vicious, and that's when it can get.
That was what made it hard in the hours that followed. It was something was pointing out to me is because of the way that social media algorithms work, is that it picks up on keywords and key phrases, and Jota started to trend effectively. So it meant that every time you open social media. You saw some, and again, it's beautiful in its own way, but also it made the days that followed so hard because it became inescapable, and in its own way, great. You want it to have an impact, you want it to have a mark, but you're right. Like there was, it chained up all kinds of stuff on him.
There's moments even now where just it hits you in the day of what's happened in the past couple of days, and like, how many times have we gone about the building, or just in my life have I just been humming the tune of his song or whatever? Like, these anthems to us, we are singing your name in such joyful situations and supportful situations. You miss a shot or anything like that, we'll always back you anytime we do that. And the fact that those songs then go into your everyday life, you walk about and all of a sudden you just start singing the song that comes to your head, and it's a Liverpool song. The fact that, such an incredible song, and one of the best on the cop, certainly of the last several years, and maybe of all time, it is an incredible song that we made for him. The fact that, like, now you can't sing it without being reminded, you can't think of it without being reminded of what's happened. That's devastating, cause like you said, just in your day-to-day life, like these moments where you'll hum the tune walking up the stairs, like, you just realise that you won't be able to watch that player grace the football pitch anymore.
It makes you wish you'd appreciated it more.
Yeah, but also it's the fact that, like, for me, we mentioned him getting married, like, that is another chapter of his life. Like, that is the start of something beautiful again, and he had so much ahead of him, so much life to live, so much to be excited for. He'd won the Premier League and the Nations League, in the month before, and the fact that it was just taken so quickly away from him and from his family, then that's the most heartbreaking point.
On the song thing, one of the things when I went down to the ground is someone had sort of rewritten the song in their own little tribute of it, and I read it, and they put, I can't remember exactly what it was, but they put, he took us to victory rather than he will take us to victory and stuff, and like that rocked me big time. Lyra must have read that as well, because she's been singing that version for the last 3 or 4 days, just around the house. She doesn't know I can hear, she's in a different room and stuff. And it just hits you like a ton of bricks, doesn't it? And it's just like, she's going to do that version, and do I say something to her? Like, it's not the real version, or like, clearly she's remembered it. It's obviously, you know, quite a good thing for her to have done. She's obviously, you know, it's maybe touched her even. I don't know, but it's mad. But like, I don't know, I think you might know this, Paul, but I don't know whether anybody else knows this. Certainly I've not said it, because you all do grieve in different ways, and I think it's important to think about the family, and you think about the Diogo and Andre's family, but also it brings up grief in other people that might remind them of previous grief as well. Yeah. So I know I was chatting to a friend of mine the other day who lost someone very close to them, and all of the tribute had brought that up to them, and they were dealing with Diogo grief and also the grief that happened in their life as well. And for me, what happened is actually eerily similar to what happened for the football players at our club right now, in that when I went to first year uni, we had a friendship group, as you do, maybe 12, 15 of us, fellas, women, all that type of yeah, that was it, fellas and women. And then during the summer holidays, one of our friendship group died in a car crash between first year and second year university. So when you go back, you're in your friendship group again, but there's a big fucking hole. Yeah. And like, so for me, I was like, and it started bringing up that from 20 odd years ago for me, and you're just there and you're going, and I'll be honest, I don't think about him very often. Every couple of years I might think about that situation or whatever, but I remember how difficult that was in that sort of second year of university, where you're like, he's just not there, but he should be there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then you think about what the football players are going to be feeling, because as you said before, Paul, it's completely different to a fella being transferred away. And I do worry for the mental health of not just our players, but also the people who are working at Liverpool. You know, we know Si, who used to be a producer here, he was working on the video that Liverpool put out at 11 o'clock at night on the Thursday. Can you imagine how difficult it must have been for the people working to trawl through all those Jota videos to try and come up with something that they deemed good enough? Yeah. And I think they did a brilliant job, and I'm really proud of Si that he was on that and was able to do it, because I think it perfectly encapsulated who Diogo was as a person and as a Liverpool player. But then I started to think about the human side of what happened behind this. They must have been cut up.
People are going to need support.
Doing that.
Everyone's going to need support, and it could be, like I say, grief. I got a DM off a guy yesterday who from Blackpool, who said, I've driven down and me and my son are heartbroken and we're properly grieving and we're not sure about it. I was like, there will be people in that situation, like the grief. You don't have to have known someone to grieve them. Like, that's just, you just don't.
Yeah. Well, you're right.
And it does bring other things up.
It's not quite survivor's guilt in that regard, but it's
empathy, isn't it?
It's the cousin of it. Like, you know what I mean? Of like, you know, when someone else happens and it's something that could happen to anyone in some regards, you have a sense of like, why them? And then you think, and then you can't help but think about all the situations that led up to it. And I'm not a religious person, but I know Alisson's post in that regard had a bit of a sense. He's like, because he you know, for him everything's part of God's plan. Now, if you don't believe in that, you know, you don't believe in that. But if you do, you got to work out like, well, and he's saying almost like saying like, well, I've got no idea how this could possibly be part of it, but hopefully in the fullness of time it will all reveal what it is.
Jürgen was similar.
Jürgen was a bit more like, it's at times like this I struggle probably, and I took that as his religion.
Yeah, I agree.
To understand how that happened.
Just on Alisson as well, his post about being separated by an ocean from sort of grieving some of that broke me all over again, to be honest with you. That's so hard to read. That is like, it's going to be the case for a lot of these players, the ones that couldn't be there. They'll be struggling bad right now, and going back this week's going to be nigh on impossible for some of them, I would imagine. But yeah, the Alisson stuff, just heartbreaking, man.
Yeah, I think there's just for people watching and listening, there are obviously conversations around what comes next and what happens next, and they'll be unavoidable. You know, it's woven into the fabric of Liverpool for all time from now on. But I want people to, you know, I know we've talked about a few of the sort of bits and pieces as we've gone along, but you know, if people want to give their favourite memories or whatever. There's loads. I'm happy to cede the floor, Chris, if you want to if you've got one you want to mention in particular. Or
Can I go? If you don't mind, mate? I think the moment that sums Diogo Jota up perfectly was the penalty against Leicester. In that pressure moment in a football match, you know, he had to score the goal. Liverpool weren't going to win that trophy. And he scores. And bear in mind, it goes back to the line of the song, he's a lad from Portugal. But he clearly got us, because those Leicester fans were singing some vile things and horrible things. And again, it is what it is. That's football, and hope that can change. But they were singing all through that game. They were effectively beating up Liverpool's reserve/kids team. And then Liverpool, can put the big guns on. Minamino scores, and then it goes to penalties. Jota scores it. And he basically goes and tells them all to do one. And, you know,
oh, God. He effectively...
He basically offered the whole Annie Road out. And that was him in a nutshell. In that pressure moment, he scored in 2 penalty shootouts in finals. He steps up when you need a moment. Diogo Jota's there for you. But not only am I going to score and knock you out, I'm going to tell you exactly why I've knocked you out. And it's quite poetic in that you are literally behind them, because the way the seating of the stadium works. I've got these 3 sides of I'm doing this for them as well. So you can all take that. And he always played, and I loved your video when you said he had that bit of needle about him that we love. He wasn't an arsehole. Yeah. You know, he wasn't, but he was right on the line of, I play and I play and I play to win. I'm not here to mess about. I'm here to score goals, I'm here to win. And if I have to have a little bit of need to wind you up, well, I've got to get myself going, because then I'll do that. You know, he will fly into challenges and he'd do all that.
He was just wound up by the game state, how Leicester players approached it, how the Leicester fans approached it, as everyone in the stands. Yeah. And we were talking about, and I put a little clip of it out on a video. The response to it was unlike any you know. Maybe like Man United games. The lad who sits next to me, Sam, is up and he's giving the V's to the Leicester fans, and because Jota was like our avatar on the pitch there of how we felt about, we just wanted it. It was like, yeah, because you're right, we put a team of kids out, Vardy and Maddison were having none of it, decided to treat it like it was the biggest game of the season, and we're like, okay, it's a League Cup quarter-final and the build up to Christmas, kind of whatever, right? No, we're all in on this, we're going for it. Jota gets the goal back, Minamino levels it up, and then the penalty shootout. It was just, that's one of my favourite ever games, Liverpool games ever, and certainly under Jurgen Klopp, when you think about all the finals and stuff. And yeah, the Jota moment is the not just the icing on the cake, it's the cherry and everything. It's beautiful.
It's just like, it is. I've that used, you know, he points to his chest, he tells them all to fuck off, basically, doesn't he? And it's like that, that, because he's one of us, like he is, like, go back to it, he got like. Ultimately, usually Liverpool beat Leicester in a league, was it a quarter-final? Yeah, League Cup quarter-final, penalty shootout. No one's like, oh, that sounds, got away with one there. You all walk off and it's like, jobs are good. And the manager goes, yeah, we got away with that one. We should really beat Leicester, like, but we got away with it. But now, because have been what they've been doing and what they've been saying, he was just like, everybody, 5,000 of you have that. Yeah. Get back on the motorway, see you later, we're going to the semi-final. Yeah. I love that about him. It was just like that on the line of aggression without quite tipping over the edge.
Scouse as fuck.
Yeah. He had a knack of scoring goals, full stop, but certainly big goals in big games, in big moments. He was so often the one. There's a myriad of Arsenal options we could pick. There's some Everton ones along the way as well, which I'm sure we'll touch upon, but it is the Spurs goal for me. That sort of epitomises what he was as a footballer. The moment, I can still picture it now in my mind's eye, the Richarlison yellow card for taking his shirt off, still on the screen because he's just thought he's equalised up the other end. Ball breaks in the box, and Diogo Jota. How often do we say when you want somebody on the end of something or to have the ball at his feet in those sort of situations, it's Diogo Jota. He delivers, and he delivers. And we spoke before about how much gaming and FIFA meant to him, and that's the celebration. There's cool, calm and collected. Everyone else has lost their fucking mind at this moment, by the way. Every single Liverpool person has gone fucking berserk, including all his teammates, and he's just brushing them off, stay calm, sits down, just him in the most, and that's the celebration we've seen a lot this weekend, isn't it? It's been sort of reimagined and recaptured worldwide, really, which is unique in itself. But yeah, that moment there in the dying embers of a game of football to produce that and win the game for Liverpool is phenomenal.
On the back of the, as you say, the Richarlison thing as well, which was just because he was doing his pigeon celebration thing, and he was absolutely loving it, like it was his big thumb in the eye to us again. And yeah, to be able to, it was like a double win, wasn't it? You know, when you win,
and he was injured, Paul. I think the reason he sits down, he's injured. Like Jota's, he's playing through an injury just for us. It's the 90th minute of a game where, by all accounts, he's had like injections and stuff to get through it. Like I think it might have again.
I can't speak. I'm not allowed to say anything.
I think we can now. I think we can.
Can we now?
Yeah, go on, tell it. I think it's fine.
Oh, I don't know whether it is. I got told I couldn't.
Well, what do you want to do?
Okay. I won't say his exact injury then.
He revealed to you that he was injured.
Yeah, he revealed to me that in that game he was injured. He shouldn't have played, but he wanted to play, and he played, and he scored the goal. He said, like, I can't say the injury, but he shouldn't have been playing with that injury. But he just
why he sat down so gingerly, maybe. Yeah.
He basically, Chloe did the video, and he basically, like, and we were asked, like, you probably shouldn't put that out live, you know what I mean? Like, we had no problem at all, but I think it just goes to show he's playing through an injury that most of us would be in bed off work. Like, there's no way I'm coming to work with that injury. He's on a footy pitch in the 90th minute, scoring goals. He don't have to. If he didn't play in that game, he'd still get paid. It's not going to change nothing, is it? But
it's the way he turned around to me and was like, yeah, I'll tell you, I'll probably be able to say it now. And you can just see LFC representatives go, no. And I feel like, come on, lads, tell us all. And like that, he felt so comfortable in that moment, like to even, like, who am I to him exactly?
Him. Yeah,
and yet, in that moment, he felt so comfortable to tell something that he clearly had been told he could not say and had to keep under wraps. And yet, because he was just having a delightful time, and it was so
delightful
calm.
Time in the company of Chloe Bloxham.
He just decided to tell us, and the LFC representatives are all like, oh, but he's just none the wiser, doesn't care.
There's so much you can say, and has been said, and will continue to be said about him. I must admit, and this isn't far from me to sort of toot me at home, but when we did the book of condolences thing the other day down in Liverpool, I have no idea what I'm going to write down. Literally in the queue, I'm going for a million different things running through my mind, much in the same way when the news initially sort of hit me. And I got there, and I had a couple of bits and pieces. I won't go into deep, but one of the lines that I quite glad I wrote actually was just always smiling, always trying. That's what it felt like it was. Yeah. Every time he took the pitch for us, he wanted to give 110%, but he just loved doing it as well. That was what we mentioned earlier on about how he lived his life and what his passions, he was living out his dream and his passions. And some old interviews resurfaced about the fact that he was still paying to play football age 16. Like, his route to where he got to and the joys and the success that he's had recently wasn't the conventional one, but that was just him. And that's what made him him. Yeah. That's what made him so human and so normal to us all.
I think as well, you look back at unfortunately now, his last goal against Everton, and now we know how big that goal was for a number of different reasons, but also, again, I go back to what I've just said, he was clearly playing with an injury. He hadn't got over he got injured against Chelsea. He clearly wasn't over that completely, because by all accounts he's had an issue with that when he's been on holiday, when he's played. He's basically played through what looks like maybe a lung injury.
But the doctor, well, I don't know, again,
it's had a verified
the doctor apparently came out and said he had a partially collapsed lung off the back of the Chelsea.
So he's played the end of the season with that. Won us the league and then gone to and helped his nation win a trophy. That's very selfless. A lot of players just go, nah, we're having that. So I look back at that Everton goal with even more like admiration now, because he was getting stick at that time, it's worth mentioning again, and like, that was a game where if we hadn't won, and again, it's all trivial now and I understand, but like at the time it didn't feel this way. Like, are we really going to, are we going to blow this? Like, is this what's going to happen? And it's going to be Everton. Yeah. Of all the teams who are going to delay this, it's going to be these. And Jota goes, nah, I'm just going to bounce my way through years, one way or another. The typical, there's a couple of Jota goals.
It's so fitting, isn't it, that he just bundles his way through now.
But it's like, it's almost a metaphor for how he got to like play footy. Like, nothing was given to him. It wasn't put on a plate for him. I'm going to run through you. You're massive. See you later. Get out of my way. You're a big grok. Get out my way. Oh, you got a goalie and goalie who apparently saves everything. Have a bit of that, you. And then runs off, but pointing at the badge like, get on me. I'm the man. I think that's a very poignant moment as well for us. That like, it kind of sums Diogo Jota up in a hole. Like, he's playing through an injury. He's playing against lads who are 10 times the size of him, and he's having none of it. Like, you are not stopping us, you gang of idiots. Like, have a bit of this. And that let off of that goal, you know, you put the video, it's massive, isn't it? How big a moment that was. And it goes back to Dan's point, like when you needed somebody, like Diogo Jota had your back. It's a poignant one. It's very, very sad that is his last goal, but it's almost like a fitting one.
It's horrible that we have to say, because again, you have to, we all know, but it's worth saying that thing of like, I fucking detest the fact that we have to talk like this, of like, how wonderfully fitting. Well, I'm sure every one of his family would give up every goal he ever scored to have him back.
100%.
But you're right. There is just something to that. We can speak of it from our perspective. I said I was in meetings and I just kept zoning out, and I kept going back to my phone, and I was looking through trying to find my favourite Jota, and I just typed Jota into the search at the back of us on Mates TV, and I think it was like 25 or 26 times where his name was in the title of a video, and that means that he had enough of a tangible impact on a football match when I was present, and that won't even count the ones where I probably just put Salah. Because, you know what I mean? Like, because Salah scored the one that really stood out in the game. So that was like, 25 odd mentions at a time where like 90 minutes to 100 minutes of my life have been elevated by the presence of him. So yeah, the Everton one's is a great example of it.
For me, Spurs, because my brother was next to me, and I always have went the game with my brother, and he moved to Portugal, and he gave up his season ticket, and he comes back for the odd game whenever we can get tickets, and that season wasn't going great for Liverpool, so I managed to get him a ticket, and he stood next to me. And going back to when I was a teenager and all I knew was going the game with my brother, like, Jota gave me that moment again. So I'd always say that, but there's two goals I think of when I think of Jota, and I think of, it was Chelsea where he literally bundles his way and it just kind of hits him. Like, he's dragged it for ages. 2-3 people have tried to hack him down, and he's somehow gone through the middle and it's bundled in. And that's so Jota. But then also at the same time, Arsenal at home, where someone gives him the ball on the edge of the box, and what he does is something incredible. He sits one lad down, he sits another lad down, and he goes, Adam Ramsey, see you later, mate. I'm just going to skate it past you and put it in the back of the net as well. Like, he had two sides of him. When the ball was at his feet, he came alive, and he was unbelievable. And I always mention it, without the ball, he wasn't that fast of a player, but when the ball was at his feet, he looked electric. You described it. I've
never heard anyone describe it better, and I vividly recall it being you described him as dragging the ball up the pitch. Yeah. And that was when you got that sense of, like, it always felt like it was attached to our goal, but by sheer force of will, Diogo Jota would make that ball head towards their penalty area, and then with every ounce of strength he had left by the time he'd done that, he'd web it into the bottom corner. And run off.
Yeah, and that was the two sides of Diogo. It was the sheer determination to just fight through absolutely anything, and the ball sometimes gravitated to him, but it was because of the hard work he'd put in to get it. But also on the other side, you put a ball at his feet and he would do something so beautiful as well at the same time. His dribbling was incredible, but when you needed someone to really go and just give it to a load of people and have that hard knock about them, it was Diogo Jota. But in moments, clutch moments, one-on-one, where you wanted someone calm, level-headed, and someone with absolute sheer quality, and also the thought process that nothing else comes, he knows exactly what he's going to do, it was Jota. And how many times did I say, in between the goalposts, there's only one person I want, and it is Diogo Jota. And Mo Salah's just gone and done what he's done, and he's done that for his entire Liverpool career. But there was just something, how intelligent of a footballer he was. His header for Nunes against Brentford, the awareness on a football pitch, it was an absolute joy to watch him. And I'm just so thankful that we got to see him in a Liverpool shirt. And ultimately, you come to Liverpool, and all Liverpool fans want is for you to give absolutely everything for the badge and for you to adore us. And he did that, but he was just unbelievable at football as well. But at the core, when you think of it, all you think about is a lad who adored fighting for the badge just as much as we adore, supporting it and representing it as well as a fan base. Yeah. He was us on a football pitch.
He came in at a time when there's not many people will come in, and when you've got Salah, Mane and Firmino as the front three.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
And he'd come from Wolves and he's gone, fancy a bit of that. Reckon I can get in that side. Reckon I can make a difference. There's not many people who would 8 minutes into his fancy it. You know what I mean?
8 minutes into his first game, he scored.
Yeah.
It's a good goal as well.
Yeah. To the point though, that challenge, that gauntlet has been thrown down since he's been it. Like, we've been in signed forwards, been in signed attacking options, and we spent our transfer record on one, and he's gone, yeah, all right, I'll have a little bit of that. Nothing's phased him.
New manager comes in, starts the season.
Every single time we've gone into the transfer market and gone, we're going to sign someone now, and that's more competition for him. It hasn't batted an eyelid. He's gone, get that. I didn't know that.
I think as well, going back to when we signed him, obviously it was COVID, so we got, it took us a year before we actually got to see him.
Yeah.
I remember the Atalanta hat-trick thinking, oh my God, what have we signed here? Like, the first goal is just the best goal I've ever seen. And then he backs it up. And
Does
then
he come on in that game?
No,
he starts.
But then the next week, I think a couple of weeks later, we're playing Man City away, and Jurgen Klopp's got no choice but to pick him. So he picks all 4 strikers and goes, I can't leave Mane, Salah and Firmino, but how can I leave this lad out? He's that good. So we all thought that summer, Thiago was the marquee signing. We were all buzzing for Thiago. He had a song before he arrived, and it was the Thiago show. Oh, and by the way, Diogo Jota and Kostas Tsimikas.
Well, if you remember,
weeks into it,
there were people at Tango wanted Adama Traore. Adama Traore was the one at Wolves who everyone was like really, really like enamoured with. He was, because that was like, he was pace and he was power, and he had a great record against Man City and all that kind of stuff. So there was a little bit of like, well, people who knew were like, okay, cool, that's an interesting. But a lot of people were like, I don't really get this. But it was so like well, so many of our...
Saab at Watford was also heavily linked to that.
And the Wolves one, I think just recently, it must have been their own, I can't remember who it wasn't. We've done an interview, it was like, my biggest regret was losing Jota. I had a choice of Jota or Traore. We had to sell one, and we decided ultimately, well, it'll be Jota, and we'll work around it. And then he was like, biggest regret ever, because he goes to Liverpool, and within 2 months, he's in the team, scoring hat-tricks in the Champions League, scoring against Arsenal, scoring big goals against all these teams. And it's like, oh my God, we've got... So by the time we all got to celebrate him, he'd been a Liverpool player for like 18 months or so, and it was very surreal. Yeah. But like, day one, in front of the fans again, it's this guy, like he was...
Did he score in that Palace game, the last game of the season?
When there's like 10,000.
Was he involved in that game anyway, but yeah.
What I remember is like, we've all said these moments with the hustle and the bustle and the work rate, but like he was the skill as well. Go watch that Atalanta hat-trick. It's as good as anything.
The Atalanta hat-trick was the one where I remember having conversations of saying it's shame, and it's just a funny thing I forgot on my video is that I said it reminded me the best of Owen and Fowler, but actually it was Owen, Fowler and Suarez with that hat-trick. It was like the bite, no pun intended, of Suarez, but then also like the silkiness of Robbie Fowler, and then just the directness of Michael Owen and how he played. I was like, God, we've just got this like amalgamation of all these diminutive great forwards that we've had over the years.
I went viral at the time because he scored the hat-trick. I was like, I just tweeted him out because again I had no interaction with football. Everything down the screen, I wasn't out. I was like, oh my God, we sound like Pele. What can't this lad do? He's done everything. This is as good as a performance as I've ever seen from a Liverpool player. Like you if you ever list off the best ever individual performance by Liverpool players, and because it's behind closed doors, that's the kind of the season everyone forgets. But like that's right up there in terms of everything. It was a joke from day one.
I enjoyed how much I enjoyed what he knew it was like to be a Liverpool player. I think he first came in and said like, what you'll always get is the absolute bare minimum of any Liverpool player, which is to give absolutely everything and fight and represent you. I loved that side of him. Yeah. But I also, and once again, I don't think beautifully is the word, because how can anything be beautiful in this situation? But he got the first goal under Arne Slot. He took us and helped us to get no 20. And whatever happens under Slot with this group of players, everything will always be a part of him as well. He will be reminded in anything we ever win, we will always go back to him as well, because everything will also be for him from those core group of players. But also from our perspective, anything we win from now on, he should have been there, and he would have been there. So I think us as a fan base, we will always think of him. He's etched into our history and our hearts forever.
Just one last mention. It came up in the people in the comments had mentioned that like hat-trick of assists against.
I was going to mention that against Rangers for Salah, because to the point about him having everything, and you used the word diminutive a minute ago. He was, but fuck me, he was good in the air, wasn't he? You know what I mean? Like, that was what always startled me about him. A lot of what he did, you thought, okay, we sounded very clever, very intelligent, very skillful footballer. But then when you watch him in the leap and the fact he was so into the positions he used to take up to be able to do that. As well, absolutely. Yeah, that's what struck me, I reckon. But yeah, that hat-trick of assists just showed what he was as a footballer, because whilst the goals and the big moments come along as well, he was very appreciative of his teammates and he used to be able to bring them into play.
Well, he went like a calendar year, didn't he, without scoring, but he was assisting in that time as well. And obviously we mentioned the injuries, and I think it's worth mentioning this again because you're right, that the one, like, looming cloud of negativity that would always come back to was like, well, he had the injuries, and we've had footballers with injury issues, and I've never been comfortable slating someone for being injured. But he was injury prone because he just used to get bladdered everywhere by big defenders, and he'd run it. And like the Chelsea one, a giant Chelsea centre half falls on him, and that's they're things. It was because of the way he played the game that he wanted to be in the thick of it, and he wanted to get stuck in. And there are footballers who know that would happen and would remove them. They would always leave a foot out of a tackle. And one thing you can say about Diogo Jota is that he would never, ever, ever leave a foot out of a tackle or a head or his body if he thought it could help him get us up the pitch or get a goal or get an assist or just help with a breakaway to recover the ball. And it goes back to it, Salah has been the superstar of this team, and Virgil van Dijk's and Alisson Becker's, and Jota was never on that echelon, and yet is as beloved as those because of how he played the game and how he conducted himself on the pitch. And mentioned it was Scouse as fuck. He was a Scouse as fuck footballer, and I think that's why he has stuck with so many, and it's impacted people.
And it's
so
why
much.
the song's so important to all of us as well, isn't it? You truly believe the words when he was singing them and stuff like that. And
he buzzed off it as well.
He did.
He loved this song.
That first song that we're going to sing together is like, it's going to be heavy, that, isn't it?
That video, can I go, sorry, very quickly, that one memory of him singing his song when we won the trophy, and the jaw, I think, because he even sings a bit like better than Figo, don't you know? A lot of people were just chatting, I'm going to shy away from being compared to one of the greatest footballers. He's like, no, I'm good at this, I am, like, me kind of thing, and he's twirling that scarf. He is a man full of self-belief.
Figo's old though, so I think Jota is better than was better than
always has been. And the man who was on that video, he's a man full of self-belief and self-confidence. I think he knew how good he was, and he knew how hard he'd worked. And he was like, you know what? I was paying to play footy, like less than 10 years ago, and now I'm dancing in front of the cop. I'm going to enjoy every single moment of it. That's why it's so poignant, that video.
Absolutely.
The other thing is, I'd just like to say it was an absolute honour to even, interview and be in his space, because you kind of forget that at the heart of it, they are just human beings. He went out of his way to do that interview, to come and meet, I think it was the Premier League player representing Liverpool at that time. He didn't have to. There was no need. There was no obligation to do so. It was a case of, this lad's going to represent us. I'm his favourite player. I'll do that. And he sat down, and it's the greatest honour of my professional career, and it will remain the greatest honour of my professional career, to sit down and just have a chat with him, because that's like the first Liverpool player I've ever been able to interview like that. And I was really quite nervous for it, but he just chatted to me as if like we were about to play a game of FC. He was so calm and easy to talk to, but he was also really cheeky with it, and like he'd joke with you. And I think he even beat the lad at FIFA, which says how good he was at that. He could have represented Liverpool if he wasn't busy on a weekend actually playing for us. But just being in his space, you couldn't help but smile and laugh. And I'm so thankful that someone took photos that day, because those photos are some of the greatest photos, and they will go on my wall, that's for sure, because he just lit up a room when he spoke and when he chatted. And it was an absolute honour to be able to speak to him.
I just want to read through some comments that people have sent in. Obviously a bit of a mixed bag across things that we've been discussing throughout, really. Sue Dodd says, I know what it's like to lose a child. My heart goes out to the family, devastated. And that's the other side of things we talked about, it, people empathising from his parents' perspective, and the level of grief hasn't really got the same level of focus. Castor Troy mentioned the Leicester one as well as Diogo, telling the Leicester fans, well, he's too thick off. We'll take that. We'll keep it PG where we haven't. Boss James Shine says, I still can't believe he's gone. I still think it's not real. Can't praise the wider football community for the support enough, and how we have all come together. Trig Josh says, we're all beautiful people. We're all together when we remember. We're all one. I feel devastated. I feel happy that I feel devastated. It reminds me that I'm human. Life is precious. R.I.P. Diogo, YNWA. Thank you everyone who sent wonderful comments in. It's the sense and the size of it is, actually, to back up just Josh's point there, it's not good in the circumstances. it is good to feel that, because again, it's a mark of how significant a person he was and the impact that he has had on our lives and the wider community. And, you know, we couldn't even come close to touching upon all of his best moments for Liverpool and all of the phenomenal tributes that have done the rounds. You know, one last one, like Bruno Fernandes, I thought it was beautiful, beautiful touch from him. I think he said like his kids will never want for anything as long as he's around. And the thing as well is, and I don't know where this has come from. Somebody about to put me straight, but there was the Liverpool, or Michael Edwards or FSG, whoever we want to look at it,
stepped in before the clause,
cancelled his contract before it was voided by his death, which means that they're eligible to pay the contract out to his family, these are stupid little things, you know, in the grand scheme of things. These are box ticking sort of legal exercises, but it means that they get to do right by the family, which is a lovely touch. I don't know whether there's been anything official, or whether it was a reading of it, whether they will retire the 20. I don't know whether that's been...
I think the wording was immortalised the number 20. That doesn't necessarily mean it's being retired.
No.
But my understanding is that it will be.
It'll be interesting to see what they do, and hope, you know, I mean, that is what, you know, we're heading into what comes next. Hopefully Liverpool, and I'm sure Liverpool will do something significant to mark this. And the one thing I'd say, it's, you know, the wider football community are feeling this, they're feeling the pain across the world. Diogo Jota is ours now. You know, like he is a Liverpool player forever, and I think that's one of the things that really struck me, is this 20 forever, Jota forever, Jota lives forever, all this kind of stuff. And, you know, it's, yeah, you know, he could have, you know, again, we'd all choose for him to have been able to, we'd have transferred him in a heartbeat if it meant, you know, something else happening. But it does mean that, yeah, he is now and forever will be part of the DNA of this football club moving forward. So, yeah, you know, we get to pay our respects, and hopefully Liverpool get to do something fitting in the coming days, weeks and months. But yeah, what follows next, we will see. But when we all get to come together next, whether it's in pre-season, when it will be in pre-season, and it will definitely be on the opening game of the season, it's going to be absolutely something else. And yeah, just to share the sentiment to everyone else, I hope that particularly his wife, I think, but obviously his parents as well, and his wider family and his children, get to see the scenes and the tributes and read them, and I hope it helps in some small crumb of a way, really. But yeah, that is it. Diogo Jota, what a stunning footballer, man. He gave us so many incredible memories, and he will be remembered long by everyone here, and I'm sure everyone at home as well. Yeah. So yeah, rest in peace, Diogo Jota and Andre Silva, and all the love, of course, to his family and those who remain. Thank you so much for joining us, for watching, for listening, and we'll see you all again soon.